All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. We are discussing Doing Imago Relationship Therapy in the space between, and we are on chapter 3, which is our connecting brain, which I am very excited to talk about because I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think Harville does a masterful job of looking at polyvagal and the triune brain and the other theories and being really practical about, we don't need to get into a debate about neurobiology or which theory is best, but really how do we use these theories to help our couples and to help our couples, but also help us stay attuned and keep our brain under control while we're working with these couples. So I think he and Helen did a beautiful job here, but I'll just kind of open it up to you. What did you like about this chapter? Anything that stood out? I have things underlined. I always love to go to that, but I want to hear from you. Do you disagree with my assessment of those theories and how they were handled? Do you want to add? I don't know if you saw, but I've been doing
I
little
got it.
memes out on Facebook. And so we can talk about which of these things would make a good meme too. Because I'm trying to pull out the little quotes, make this book, feel inviting because there's so much beautiful information in here and it can be a little intimidating. It can be a little intimidating. So, hi, Paul.
Hello,
Good to see you.
to you guys.
Is it Veronica or Veronica or how do I say?
Véronique.
Veronique. Nice
Yes.
to
Thank you.
meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you as well. Thank you for asking.
Yes, welcome. So, anything people want to jump in with?
Well, so I don't know, Michelle. I've not met many of these people. I wonder if they could we could do a little
Let's do a round.
like hello or how whatever.
Sure, you start, Leslie.
All
Where are you
right.
from?
Yeah. So my name's Leslie Sullivan. I live in State College, Pennsylvania. It's the home of PSU, for better or for worse. And uh, so that's where I am in the world. And I'm a workshop presenter for Mago and an advanced workshop uh, therapist. So that's me. Hi, everybody. It's really good to see all these.
And what does PSU stand for,
Oh,
Leslie?
Penn State University. I just think
Okay.
that
Okay.
we're so arrogant over here. We actually think everybody in the world knows who we are. Hello.
Thank you.
How humbling to find out that's not true.
It's like the first time.
There's one person who doesn't know. Who would like to introduce yourself next?
Well, perhaps I'll go next. Might as
Good.
well. So my name is Véronique Pigeon. So as you can tell, my mother tongue is French, although I'm here based in Montreal, Canada. And I'm a certified professional Imago facilitator. So
Yay.
proud to be for the past year, although started my journey during a pandemic. So
Mm,
really glad to be with you today.
welcome.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. My name is Latresa. I am a private practitioner. I've been doing this for over 25 years. And I just finished Imago a year ago. We're actually finishing our trainings now with Marcia and Carol. So I'm just trying to join everything I can to get more acclimated because I'm loving the work that I'm seeing. I just really love it. It's powerful. So I think I answered everything.
Thank you. Welcome, Latrice. And where are you located? Tell me again.
I'm in Michigan.
You're in Michigan. Okay.
Yes, I'm in Dearborn, Michigan. My office is in Livonia, Michigan.
Right. Welcome. Hi,
Thank you.
Linda. We're just introducing ourselves. Paul, would you go next?
Sure. I'm Paul Barnes. I'm from Wareham, Massachusetts, and I think I've been a certified advanced imago therapist for about 7 or 8 years now, something like that. And if people know Joanne, I'm close in location to her. I'm about 15 miles from her, and we're colleagues. So
Oh, lucky you.
yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Michael?
Hi there, I'm Michael. I live in Santa Cruz, California, which is in the Monterey Bay. I am a interested party. I've been to clinical training part one. I'm not a therapist. I'm been a facilitator of large groups of people for over 40 years. But I am just interested in Imago. I've taken Getting the Love You Want workshop 3 or 4 times with my wife. I don't remember, with once with Harville and Helen, and a couple times with other folks.
Well, welcome back, Michael. You
Thanks.
really enjoy your presence and what you have to say. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
here. Anne, you want to jump in, and then Linda?
I'll jump in. I'm Ann Erickson. Live in Greensboro, North Carolina in private practice. And right now I'm at James Madison University in Harrisonburg because I'm at a doctoral residency. I am going to graduate May 2025 with my doctorate in counseling and supervision. And my dissertation is on Imago. So the professors and everything are just very flexible with what our research was going to be. So I'm really excited. I'm doing data collection right now. So it's really,
That's
really
so
good.
exciting. Thank
Yeah.
you. Linda, you want to say hi?
Yes, I'm Linda Luter. I am located in Southern Virginia, right at the North Carolina border. Uh, Most people know Virginia Beach. I am a Margot therapist, workshop presenter, um, new faculty member, and I'm just delighted to be here.
Welcome. Yeah, and I'm Michelle Bowles. I've been on the faculty since 2019, somewhere before the world fell apart. and, and I'm still standing here. And I live in Costa Rica, but my residence is also in Texas, so I have an office there. Well, okay, so thank you, Leslie, for slowing me down because I'm so excited to talk about. So, who would like to share anything that stands out for you? Anything you want to read back to us? What did you think of this chapter? And the other question I'm asking is, what would be a good meme? I've been making little memes.
I would say for me, the beginning of the chapter where it talks about we can use our relationships to change our brains. That
Hmm.
stood out to me. I think that's very powerful to use when you're in therapy with your clients, because we're so stuck. And I also liked where it talked about, I forgot the word it used, where I want to say, it didn't say pliable, but how the brain can be changed. And those are two things that stood out for me. Um,
Yeah, so
and it all
you're
just comes together.
well, but you're highlighting the neuroplasticity of the brain, that the
Yes,
brain is changeable and that we can use the way we relate to the people closest to us to actually facilitate our brain working better. So we can change our brain for the better through our relationships. And of course, that also means the same thing in reverse.
absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Great. Anyone want to add to that? I don't know if you know where that is in the chapter, but I
It was right on
agree.
page 67. It was right at the top, I think the
Right
second
at the
paragraph.
top.
Mm,
Our brains were shaped by interactions with our caretakers, and that environmentally shaped brain shows up in adulthood and determines the quality of all relationships, but especially intimate ones. Our relationships will sustain or change the operations of our brains for better or worse. And since our brains are plastic, changeable, we can use our relationships to change our brains. Thank you.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Linda.
I yeah, I just wanted to share that is that part that just shows the brilliance of, I say Harville and creating the dialogue. Oftentimes, usually when I hear this from people, I know they don't have a lot of experience with it. They just think Imago is just about a dialogue. It's like, oh yeah, that theory that just they just use this dialogue, um, because it's not just about a dialogue. It's all this, it's all this that's behind it. It has so many, it's doing so there's more than meets the eye, is what I tell people. I said it seems simple, it seems like a dialogue, just a dialogue, but it's so much more, and you don't have to get into and even have to understand the science behind it, but if you just know that there's something greater, at work here.
Beautiful. It's hard to mirror when someone is as eloquent as Linda is. I'm like, yeah, you don't need to know the science. But it does, it's more than a dialogue. Yeah, is that a fair summary? You said it so much more and so much better. Would anyone else like to add on to what Latrice and Linda are saying?
As an experience, I think what Linda just said is pretty powerful because, I've been to Imago therapists and I've coached couples just for my learning, but generally speaking, when I did it, I didn't say, well, here's all this theory behind it, and here's all this, it's basically like, let's talk and, start with an appreciation or whatever. Just start mirroring and start doing it. And the power of it just happens. And I've seen Harville do the same thing where, not talk about any theory at all, just get right into it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. The pow is just powerful, and we can't really explain something that someone's going to experience as powerful. We can't tell them it's going to be powerful. We need to invite them to experience what is it like to really be heard.
Mm.
And then it's nice to know that the brain responds positively for all these scientific reasons. Yeah. I like this part on page 70 of the three-part embodied brain, where he's really referencing Siegel. And he says, although in conversation, the brain and our body are often referred to as separate entities, the brain and the body are interconnected and independent as our fingers are with our hands, as we are with the universe. Right? Like my mind always wants to divide things into little parts, right? Because that's how I understand things. But when you can see, like, no, this is a flow of energy that doesn't end where my nervous system ends. It goes on beyond that, and all of it is intertwined. And then he quotes Siegel directly. This is why we can sense that the mind, who we are, is fully embodied and relational. That ourselves don't end here, but they're embodied. It's embodied here. I just thought that was so beautiful, almost like poetry. Poetry to a therapist.
I love what you're stating, Michelle, because, well, first of all, I'll just mention a resource that I've yet to tackle fully, but there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score,
Oh, yeah.
right?
That's amazing.
And so I haven't, read through it all, but something just so you know, my professional background is a certified coach.
Mhm.
And so I do also teach as faculty. And what I often tell the students going through our certification program, which is like that I often tell them because they do face their clients who are resistant to connecting with their body. And of course, there may be trauma or whatever, but I often tell them to introduce the idea of the embodied self is that there's beautiful intelligence in our brain, right? The intellect, the analytical, and all. And yet there's beautiful wisdom as well in our body, our heart, our gut, our spirit, our emotions, right? That we kind of tend to limit ourselves with, right? So we overuse this data here, but there's beautiful wisdom throughout. And not only our bodies, but the whole system or whole universe is wisdom as well.
That's right. And Harville is doing this beautiful job of really elaborating on all of that. But I did put
Mhm.
Vander Kolk's book in the chat if people want to look at that because, yeah, it's a beautiful book. Basically, like what Linda's saying is Imago decades ago knew that we could tap in to our memory networks and the wisdom of our bodies and our unfinished business in this communication structure before EMDR came along and all the trauma work and everything came along to then validate what we knew we were doing in reworking all of that and integrating it. That this is a beautiful word,
Mhm.
integration, that we're integrating the wisdom of the body, the painful memories with the positive. So they're not all separate. Yeah. Thank you. I love that. I love that you're bringing that to the coaching world.
Mhm.
hmm I think too, I really want to highlight, he's talking about, this is at the end of page 70, that basically we have this giant, massive homing device. Like we are reading, scanning the environment, registering signs of safety or danger, and processing information from sensory and motor areas that are strategically placed throughout the brain and body.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the sentence right above that.
Oh, read it. Please read it.
The brain and the body are in constant communication, sending messages back and forth to adjust and readjust the feedback they produce, and upon which both are dependent for their balanced homeostatic functioning. Thus, for example, the body knows even before the higher brain processes it whether someone who is walking a little too closely behind us is dangerous.
hmm
Like that sense that comes before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there is, like if you know, as a woman, I can tell you there have been a numerous times that I've walked up to an elevator in a building and just had this sense that I shouldn't get on that elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Yeah.
because I,
Yeah.
I listened to my sense, you know.
Mm.
Exactly.
I think we
Yeah.
need to like teach people about.
Yeah.
Yes, to trust the information's coming from our body. And then, like everything in our theory, it's a both and of also balancing that with, is this a trauma response
Right,
from my
Mhm.
history or is, and like if it doesn't matter, I say don't get on the elevator, right?
right,
But
right.
but balancing the listening to our nervous system and wondering like about the phenomenology of it as well. Like
Because it could be the and. It could be both a trauma response and something that's
exactly,
actually happening. You know,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So that's why you not get on. But if you find yourself at every elevator not wanting to get on, probably a clue that maybe you should wonder a little more.
Or
Yeah.
somebody's following you to every elevator. We just don't know, which is the point, is that like to both honor the body and hold the question, the curiosity, which I think is so beautiful. Michael, did you want to add to it? It looked like you wanted to say.
My make-believe story is that the trauma heightens that sense or contributes to that sense.
Of course,
It's
yeah.
so we're walking around as traumatized whole people, both things. We've got our intuition, we've got our sense, but I find that, well, I think you all get the point. I mean,
Yeah,
if you have whatever the trauma is, it's contributing to our constant scanning and our constant looking for safety and looking for danger. So.
Yeah.
exactly. Paul?
I like the idea that whatever is happening in our body has an effect on the person that's next to us. That that
Yeah.
whole quantum theory that Harville so eloquently talks about. That and it just makes sense. And I've done some studies on polyvagal theory, and this kind of ties right into that. That our bodies know way ahead of time what's going on before we even make cognitive sense of it.
Exactly.
And
That bottom up processing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but Paul,
that's
you're highlighting that our nervous systems, whether it's through a field of energy or it's mirror neurons or all the different ways that we may get information, that we affect each other when we're just
yeah,
connected, either
yeah,
connected over long distances or in the vicinity of.
right,
Some kind of
right,
connection allows us to impact each other.
yeah. That's why I always emphasize that couples, and Harville does that too, that they take 3 deep breaths together as they look into each other's eyes. There's scientific reasoning for that. It's not just something we do to make it up.
Right, exactly. We know
Yeah,
that that helps them synchronize their mind and heart and
yeah,
their brain, their bodies. Like it helps the synchronization. I just heard somebody say connection before communication,
yeah,
I
and I
love that.
really love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that when we focus on connection before communication, that it's a completely different experience. And the 3 breaths together is one of the ways that we assure, or we're more likely to have that connection online.
yeah.
Yeah, right. I talk about that with couples, like I say, let's let's start our breathing together because I have them do it consistently, right? So that's part of their knowing starting any dialogue and I say let's try to mirror each other's breathing now.
I
Hmm.
love that. Mirror each other's breathing. I
Yeah,
love
Yeah.
that, Leslie.
That nonverbal mirroring going on. Yeah. And they
Yeah,
get that more than they get all of this, right?
yeah,
exactly. And it's as critical as before we start using words. That communication starts before the words start.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah, so this kind of gets into the next thing that I wanted to highlight on page 71, which I think is so cool. It's called the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS.
Yep.
And basically, the way I explain this to people, it's like if you're looking for a new car and somehow a little Honda car has gotten on your radar, all of a sudden they're everywhere. And you're like, how did I not notice that
yeah,
this brand of car is everywhere? Or you're thinking about getting your dog. All of a sudden, your brain is seeing the dogs everywhere because you're programming your brain to look for this information unconsciously. So imagine if we program our brain to look for what's going well, or
Hmm.
if we program our brain for why things aren't going well.
yeah,
Right? So it's such a beautiful thing to know that our brain is screening out information based on our intentions.
And that what you focus on gets bigger.
What you focus on gets bigger. So Harville and Helen write, it is the gatekeeper of the information that is let into our conscious minds and filters out from the enormous amount of information available that which is relevant.
Hmm.
Here is how this mental tripwire dominates our thoughts and feelings once it has been activated. And then he goes on to talk about, which I think is really interesting, how the information comes in to the thalamus. And then if it does look dangerous, it goes to the amygdala. And, obviously this happens very quickly. And then that amygdala is like the fire alarm for the brain. Or amygdalae. There's actually two, one on each side of the brain. And that signal is also on its way from the thalamus to the cerebral cortex, which takes time and where processing is slower. So, Leslie, you pick up on something, you maybe get a feeling in your gut, some kind of visceral experience or goose pimples or some kind of information through the body. And then it goes up to the cerebral cortex of like, maybe I shouldn't get on that elevator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's that. And then I love back on page 70, I love this example he gives because this is it's not an unusual, I'm not going to say it's common, but it's not an unusual example.
Yeah.
So, for example, when a man hears his wife announce to him that she no longer loves him and wants a divorce, what happens inside the man's body, in his nervous system, endocrine, cardiac, hormonal, and other systems is comparable to how he might describe his emotional experience. It is felt as though he had been kicked in the stomach. At that moment, biologically speaking, this is indeed what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes both ways. So there's
Yeah,
that I sense something, now it's going to my brain, or I hear something, it's in my brain, but now it's going to my body.
exactly. Yes. And I think that how I often think about it is that we are humans living in animal bodies. So, like, I just had a client say something like, "Oh, yeah, I was spanked, but it was, with a belt a few times, regular basis, not a big deal." And I just said, "And how do you think if you had a dog, the dog would respond if that had happened to the dog?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, like it's much clearer in the animals because they can't rationalize it. It's like, yeah, maybe that dog would start to cower, hide in the corner."
I'll get it.
That there's the animal body, and the animal body, when a partner says I'm leaving you, the animal body goes, "Oh, you're dead. I just lost my partner." Like it registers as a death. So it makes sense to me what you're saying, Leslie. It's like, yeah, sometimes we hear something and then it hits our nervous system, and our nervous system communicates the full emotional impact before the brain can like start to rationalize things. Hi, Valerie. How are you?
Good to see everyone.
Yes, and last time you couldn't. Oh no, that was a different class, but you had some weather stuff. How's the weather there now?
Oh, yeah. Well, we personally were lucky. Some people were very badly
Hmm.
flooded out, and I think over 200 people were killed in our
Oh,
area.
Ah,
And
yes.
this is in the mountains of Western North Carolina.
yeah, yeah.
The
Oh,
city of Asheville still does not have fresh water. Their
Wow.
water system was wiped out.
oh,
Oh, yeah, it was rough here.
it
Yeah,
is rough. It's still very rough there. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're safe, reporting in, safe and sound.
it's
But
great
yeah,
to,
we'll be thinking about all those families and
yeah,
towns and communities because we are all connected.
yes, we are.
Hmm. So
So
yeah, we've been talking about the brain here, and we're kind of moving our way towards 72, where we're getting into the central brain structures. And yeah, anything people want to highlight? 72, 73. Starting to get into the sciencey stuff, which is, pretty
Oh,
cool.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. We're talk about how implicit memory is located, kind of spread throughout the brain. We think of the amygdala or amygdala as like the fire alarm, but really our implicit information is always being processed and quite broadly. And that when we don't feel safe, now we start to get cortisol dumped into our nervous system that evokes defensive behavioral and emotional reactions. So that is sort of the hormonal source of our reactivity. And we know cortisol is really bad for our health, our heart, our blood sugar, our everything to do with the body. It's hard on the body. We weren't meant to live flooded with cortisol. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, I use this information too because oftentimes those responses we often feel ashamed, or we blame, each other about how we behave. But here where it says that what second paragraph, the adaptation that arose to protect the organism from danger, always try to normalize those behaviors, to explain it's not about shame, blame, or guilt, so we don't have to feel bad that we, may react a certain way. That reaction is there to keep us safe if there's real danger, but then we reframe what might be happening at the moment to see, that's why everything that comes to the brain, we shouldn't accept it for truth. We have to challenge that thought and say, okay, just because that thought came in, is that really true? Is that really what is happening? Because if there is no danger, then we can then, reprogram our behavior.
Mm, well said. Where are you quoting from? Can you say again, Linda?
Right there. So under the central brain, page 72,
Yeah.
that second full paragraph where it says expanding on McLean's early work,
Mm-hmm.
that third sentence. Uh, so
This
yeah,
interpret this finding is supported by the amygdala's knee-jerk response to stimuli it interprets as life-threatening.
yeah, right
There.
above it. Yeah,
Oh,
where it
right
says,
above
well,
that.
yeah, that sentence, expanding on McLean's earlier work. Then it says, have identified the emotional circuitry of the amygdala as a evolutionary adaptation that arose to protect the organism from danger.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna star that.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. So it just normalizes, why you would go into that protective stance.
Exactly. And that adaptations are to help us survive.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
The and to that is the next part, which you were saying it doesn't matter if it's true or not. The cortisol is released,
Yeah.
and not many of us are present enough to say, is that true or is that really happening? We're just going with the cortisol or we're going with the reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and thank goodness, because otherwise our ancestors would not have survived that bear. We wouldn't
Yeah.
be here to be talking about it. But now we don't live in an environment of bears and, too much. And so, yeah, discerning the level of danger is not always easy. And especially because of the time element, the brain cannot tell time. These structures don't tell time. So they can't distinguish without the use of that cortex, the neocortex, to discern the timing of, am I still in a dangerous situation or am I not? Yeah, so they go on to say, that the central and lower brain, the old brain, classifies incoming stimuli as either safe or dangerous. Safe simply means that something will not hurt, harm, or kill us. Dangerous, of course, means precisely the opposite. So, we can be physically safe and still not feel safe. because we're also social creatures. Collaboration is a survival strategy. We need to live in cooperation with others. So I might be physically safe, but not feel valued, seen, respected, heard, a sense of belonging. And that's also an important part of our sense of safety. And then he goes on at the end, they go on, end at page 72. When safety reigns, the ventral vagal system is activated and the old brain lets down its guard. So that's really our goal, right, in therapy, is to help that old brain settle down, let its guard down so that we can now open our hearts and feel more connected to this other person, even if there's difference. And then it says it lets down its guard and returns to its preset state of relaxed joyfulness. When danger disappears, however, the sympathetic system goes on alert, prompting the person to either minimize by constricting energy through freezing, hiding, or submitting, by activating the dorsal vagal system, or maximize by escalating through fighting or fleeing. So this is at the top of page 73. So I love that he is now anchoring the theory of minimizing and maximizing our energy to the defensive programming in our mind, brain, and nervous system.
To me, this goes back to like the initial part of the dialogue. I was saying with no shame, blame, or criticism, I will put my, listen with open heart, put my perspective to the side. So that breaks down all the things that are going on. And this is why it's so important for people to really understand those words in delivery, because it breaks it down. It calms us down. It allows us to go into their world and really hear them and not put, our elevated fear on people. Right. So it all ties in so well together.
Yeah, Latrice, I love what you're saying. I'm going to ask you to say it again. But it's an intention, right? It's somebody's intention, and it sounds like there's kind of a script that you're using or other people you know have been using to have a set intention of how we're going to show up in the dialogue. So would you say it again? Because it was beautiful.
Yes. Because in the beginning of the dialogue, we started asking, are you open? And of course, you have to say yes, or you should say yes. If we say no, then no, because now we're into that unsafe zone. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but once they say yes, it says, I will send with no shame, no blame, and no criticism. Right. And then the other person says, I will listen with an open, curious heart and put my perspective to the side. And so there becomes that safe space.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's beautiful. So the sender is setting an intention and the listener is setting an intention. And we know that that brings on there's a neurological, physical reality, and then there's also like a level of consciousness in when we set our intentions. Beautiful. Yeah, and then they're talking on page 73 in the right after upper brain structures, kind of the middle of the paragraph. Herein lie our uniquely human capacities for complex reasoning, speech, logical thought, judgment, planning ahead, self-reflection, and for moderating the raw emotion that gets triggered willy-nilly by the primitive brain. So that's the wise owl of the brain, right? The part of the brain that we really need to be online if we're going to have a loving relationship and we're going to make progress as a team at work, as a couple in the world, as a parent child pairing, like however it is, we need to have all of those things online and a low reactivity. Okay, I see Anne has to head back to class. Anne, we are sending our loving thoughts with you as you do that. But you're
I,
fighting for Imago research, so yay.
Thanks for letting me sit in, guys. All right, I'll
Yeah.
see you later.
Okay, bye, honey.
Bye.
Um, yeah, so I want to go on the end of page 73. Are you guys okay with me just reading these parts out? Okay.
Sure.
Um, Imago theory posits that beneath the psychological presentation of a couple's problem is an imbalance and unintegrated brain. This accounts in part for the effective and rapid-fire survival reaction that comes along with the tendency to shoot first and then ask questions. When feelings and action preside over thinking, we become reactive rather than reflectively responsive. Reactivity, which they define acting on feelings without thinking, or thinking and acting without feeling, is our universal human problem. The universal becomes local in our personal relationship when our acutely sensitive danger meter interprets our partner's bad mood as a sign of impending connectional rupture, since anxiety about connectional rupture is tantamount unconsciously to the possibility of our demise. The ubiquity and intensity of the survival directive makes sense. Unless we stay very conscious of what we are feeling and why we are feeling it, we are likely to imagine our partner as an enemy soldier whose bayonet is aimed straight at our heart. Because survival comes first, all lesser matters, such as speaking logically, take second place, even when in fact they are the only guarantor of survival. I was like, okay, guys, we just throw that down.
In my workshops, I went to the dollar store and I found these little primitive kind of,
Right.
so I kind of give this to them to as a reminder, check, always check this thing out,
That's
that
great.
primitive part of the brain.
I love it. I love it.
Very cute.
I remember when Jurassic Park was out, I got one of those dinosaurs, and when you pull its legs back, it goes, rah! It had like a little voice box in it. Um, who says therapy can't be fun?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so I was saying this earlier, but I really want to highlight this in the middle of page 74. There is another feature of the lower brain that does not help matters. It can't tell the difference between the present and the past. Like that's just a feature of our lower brain, which is really helpful, like we're on the plains and there's a herd of buffalo and they trample our buddy, and then there's a herd of buffalo later, or then maybe there's a herd of deer and we go, oh, okay, herd, good enough for me, let's bail. But it's not really helpful when my husband's eyebrow works the same as my mother-in-law's eyebrow and my body is like, rah! So yeah, we're set up a little bit here more for survival than relational connection. And then they go on to say, our limbic system is the mother lode of implicit memories suspended in the eternal now and here. That's deep. I'm going to read that again. Our limbic system is the mother lode of implicit memories suspended in the eternal now and here. When the
And where
stakes
are
are
you?
high, this is
Where are
page
you?
74, and it is the second paragraph in the middle. When stakes are high, unintegrated feelings from childhood are easily awakened and seamlessly merge with whatever we're feeling right now, creating timeline confusions and wreaking havoc in our love lives. I think that's a meme right there. What do you got? What do you think? I think that's a meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such is the timeless and, in a sense, mindless realm of the primal brain. In addition to being atemporal, meaning it can't tell time, The lower brain is non-spatial, with no recognition of space, merging self and other in a symbiotic union.
Can we go a little sidebar for a second?
Totally. Let's sidebar, Michael.
How would you define integrated feelings? So in the statement, it says unintegrated feelings from childhood are easily awakened.
Hmm.
So what are integrated feelings?
Yeah, well, and actually there's kind of a neurobiological answer to your question. So if you think of it like our brain is a series of neural pathways, right? All connected to each other. When we have an experience that is overwhelming to our nervous system, it creates a memory system. Okay, it's like, okay, there's a memory here, but everything is stored separately. So in trauma work, our body sensations are the images, the sounds, the cognitions, and the feelings are all stored separately. So what that means is, like, a veteran hears a loud noise, even though nothing else around that person says I'm in the jungle of Vietnam, but the noise sounds like gunfire. So because it's stored separately, it can get triggered and he drops to the ground or she drops to the ground. So when we have an overwhelming experience, it is stored in pieces, not in an integrated narrative. So when we are working with trauma, Bruce Eckert's book, Unlocking the Emotional Brain, has some really good information. So it's like we pair a positive and a negative experience, like with EMDR or in the parent-child dialogue. It opens the synapses of the brain to let in more adaptive information. So you can think of it like there's some memories over here off to the side, and there's no roads built to the rest of my identity, to the rest of who I am, to the other information I have. It's all separate, which is helpful because if it gets triggered, I don't have to stop and think, am I really in danger? I can run. I can be like, herd, good enough, I'm out of here. I don't need to go, but is it the same herd? But maybe they don't mean bad. Like, I could just be like, I'm going to get to safety and worry about that later. So an unintegrated feeling or memory network really literally doesn't have neural pathways to any other information. It can hijack our whole nervous system. And I don't know about you guys, but I get hijacked all the time with my husband, like all the time, every couple days, sometimes twice a day. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not listening to me. Ah! And it's just like, it's not integrated with, like, this is a man who just brought me coffee. He loves me. He gave me a little massage earlier. Like, it's not integrated. It's like bad, bad. So, does that sort of answer your question, Michael?
Yes, sort of. I mean,
Maybe
I
it was
like the
different.
I like the metaphor of, well, first of all, I didn't get the memories sort of separate in separate pockets in the brain. Um, I don't know how to describe an integrating experience that I had personally, other than I'm about to describe it, but it was very much I had a moment of knowing that I was totally undeserving of love and totally, or unworthy. Sorry, I had a moment of integration of I'm completely unworthy of love and I'm totally deserving of love. And those
Yes,
two things went, and I became them at the simultaneously. And then all this stuff happened in my body and my brain actually. But so I have a visceral experience of integration.
that's it, Michael. That's it. That's why we do the parent-child dialogue. We're bringing up the painful experience with a parent. Also, I like when we also bring up the positive. There's versions of that where you have both. I like that because it's more integrating. And then I have the partner who sometimes winds up in the shadow of my old memory. And I have my that person listening, and that it causes the integration of the I'm lovable, or whatever those things are. So that helps us integrate it into the brain, into the memory network. So you're describing it beautifully.
Well, I have a felt sense. I mean, I had an experiential
Yeah.
of it, but I would like more intellectual understanding of it. In particular, because the inner dialogue, I see people and hear people's inner dialogue all the time,
Yeah.
and observe what it's doing to them. And it's hard. So I'm looking for a more intellectual understanding of the integration.
Yeah. I like that you're wondering about that. Latressa?
So
Latresa?
does the work come in when you're doing the history taking with the couples and they're sharing experiences, and we as clinicians, coaches, or whatever our title is, we do deepenings and says, so this is what this reminds me of.
Yes.
And so as your partner listens to how they're saying things and it's taking you back to how your perfect example, I have a couple that comes in and his wife, short version, his wife's mom died. They talked 7 days a week, a few times a day. And then his dad died and never saw his child be born. And so he didn't want to talk to her about, he felt it was unfair because she just lost her mom. So as they began to talk and he said, it's unfair. And then she started crying and saying, I don't want you to ever not talk to me. So because they brought in history, they were able to connect on a deeper level,
Yeah. That's exactly
understanding what I'm
right.
triggering,
That's right.
understanding how my impact affects you makes me more aware of how I should, on my own, not want to do that to you.
Yes, and we're integrating his past experience with her past experience with their present experience. And you're right, the deepening, that's part of why we try to see if there is any connection. It doesn't have to be, right? Is this similar or different from my past? Helps us with that integration. But Michael, I would encourage you checking out Unlocking the Emotional Brain if you want a more intellectual understanding of that integration and how it works in the brain. I want to go to the polyvagal because I think Harville and Helen do a beautiful job incorporating now the social engagement system of the polyvagal and all of that. And Paul, you mentioned having studied that. Is there anything you want to highlight in this section about it?
Uh, where page are we on?
So
Oh, I see.
the
Yeah,
polyvagal, they start to go into this in on page 75. Now
yeah, I see it.
integrating sort of the the three-part brain, the lower, central, and upper brain structures, integrating that with the polyvagal theory.
Yeah. Uh, I like to tell my clients that my couples that when they're in that fight or flight, I tie this into the polyvagal and how our bodies get filled with cortisol, and we're stuck there, and some of us have a hard time coming back from that when we're in that dorsal state, and some of us can come right back and they're ready to go again, and
Yeah.
especially when I'm telling couples, like, you want to move to the repair part quickly, and you know so in order to do that, they have to break that up. And Deb Dana talks a lot about the break, BRAKE, kind of break that you have a way of going from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic and back to the parasympathetic by using that. And so I encourage my couples to think about that. And it can be as simple as breathing, like box breathing, or
Yes.
something more, visualizing something more. I'm a long distance bike rider, and I like the idea of one of our things is to visualize yourself on a bicycle going down a steep hill, and it's full of potholes, and I'm in danger. I'm going to fall. I'm going to hit a pothole and I'm going to go for a ride. But then I noticed that I have brakes on my bike and I just gently squeeze them, and I
Mm.
can feel safe again. I feel, this, but then I realize, I kind of like going fast. I can let my hands off the brakes again and go fast. And then, when it gets a little scary, I can bring that back again.
Oh,
And
what a powerful metaphor, Paul. I love that.
Great.
yeah, yeah. I stole that from Deb Dana. That's
I love
hers.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
There's no brakes on my surfboard, so
Yeah.
um okay, good. Well, there's one thing I want to highlight on the bottom of page 75, which I think is could be a meme. It's our physical survival is tied in with the quality of our felt connection with others.
Mhm.
That we really need to have that felt connection, that sense of belonging, and that somehow if we don't, it feels like our physical survival is at risk. Because of course, when we're babies, it would have been. And I mean, they do a beautiful job of highlighting the different pathways that you're referring to, Paul, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
Before we go on, can we go back to integration for a quick second?
Sure.
I, thank
It's
you. I
important.
just reread and maybe I just made an integrate. I just integrated. It seems like there's a strong relationship with time.
Yes.
Integration or unintegrated, when we can differentiate between then and now or
Yes.
what have you, then that helps with integration.
Yes.
So
Mm.
there's a strong relationship to time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of this, I think it's really important that we are trauma informed as therapists, as coaches, to know when somebody's disassociating from the present time and what they might need to help them stay present. And but just things like what Paul's talking about, grounding tools. Um, there's a lot of techniques and tools that then we can integrate into the couple's work, but we do need to know that their nervous system is present enough to process what is coming up, and that's why it's so critical that we start with, yeah, shallowing, thank you, um, coming to the cognitive, asking people
Mm.
to come up to their mind and think and not just be floating in their nervous systems and their emotions, but also so it's so important that we spend a lot of time building positive resourcing for
Yeah.
the couple. So we have the appreciations, but we also have caring behaviors, sweet memories dialogue, gratitude dialogues,
A holding exercise.
the holding exercise, dreaming tomorrow dialogue. Like we have all these things that we can really build up the positive resourcing so that the brain says my safe space as well as triggering me. So yeah, that's it's so beautiful.
Paul?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention one of the things that I've found very powerful with clients, with couples, is mapping their nervous system, like
Mm.
mapping their parasympathetic, and I'll do that in a dialogue where when I'm in my parasympathetic nervous system, I'm feeling this way, and the world treats me this way, and and you are doing this when I'm in that. And I'll follow it through with the sympathetic nervous system. So it's a good idea that they both know, they get an idea of each other's, what triggers them.
I may be the only one that doesn't understand. How would I give me a small example of mapping my nervous system?
Okay, so uh, when I'm in my parasympathetic nervous system, I'm feeling wonderful. The world treats me great, and uh, I feel loved by you. When I'm in my, uh, let's say I'm in my dorsal state, um, you don't exist. I don't exist. The world doesn't exist. Those kinds of things. I'm here by myself, and I can't, and I'm stuck here.
It's a very scary place when that
Yeah,
happens.
right.
Uh, Part of the reason I'm asking is if I was in therapy with you and you asked me to map my nervous system, I wouldn't know, I wouldn't even know where to start or what to, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would have no idea where to go.
Yeah, I would give you some instructions on how to do how to do it.
It's hard to condense a whole hour of therapy into
Sure.
a sentence or two.
But even
Yeah.
making the distinction between parasympathetic and dorsal state, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I give a little psychoeducation around what those states are, just so you know what they are.
Yeah, and we wouldn't even have to do that. We could keep it very layman friendly, and just talk about, when I feel scared, what that's like
Yeah.
for me, and
Yeah.
when I feel safe, what that's like for me.
Yeah.
Um, on page 77, I like this. They say there's nothing wrong with the sympathetic fight, flight, or parasympathetic freeze reactions, except, of course, they inhibit the brain from accessing the higher cortical functions that are critical to relax, safe relating between two human beings.
Mm.
And right before that, they write, depleting its precious metabolic energy that otherwise could have been diverted towards growth and expansion.
Yeah.
That these states use up a lot of our resources.
Mm.
And in a world where the world needs us to make positive contributions to help out our neighbors or, whatever it is that's going on in our communities or in our homes, when we're using up all our resources because we don't feel safe and we're stuck in fight or flight or freeze, it affects our sleep, we're flooded with cortisol. And so I just like that they're coming back to, look, we just want to feel safe more so that we can make our contributions, use our gifts in the world.
And above that, like in the bottom of the first paragraph, close to it, it says safety, which is created in relationship and only in relationship.
Mm,
Pretty powerful. Is
that is
what
so powerful.
is what enables the brain to engage in socialization, nurturing, and growth related activities. That is, if you can make a meme out of that, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, where is that, Leslie?
It's in the first paragraph on page 77, and it's kind of at the second to last sentence.
Safety, which is right here. I see it.
Safety, which is created in relationship and only in relationship.
Okay, making
That
a meme of that. I agree.
that's like the reason for Imago.
It is. There's so many things in this book that I go, yeah, that's why we do it this way. Yeah, I on page 78, they get into the layering and how things are layered into like our memories. And I thought this was really powerful, really explaining why early memories need to be attended to. So it's in the second paragraph. We learn from our interactions with the environment, and this is laid down layer by layer. Life experiences are layered into the brain in priority order. Life-sustaining brain mechanisms come first, unfolding early during the pre-verbal period.
Where is that?
This is the second paragraph on page 78.
Okay.
This is when attuned parenting is especially crucial because this is also when the child's interactions with the environment pack the most wallop. Among developmental researchers, it is well known that a child's earliest experiences are also the most formative in terms of neuronal patterning. Did I say that right? And the person's emotional development. What happens to us in the morning of our lives, especially those interactions that occur day in and day out with intimate others, is most responsible for the mental mold we carry around with us. So I love that he's getting into this mental mold, which is like kind of a metaphor for our imago. This mold is formed out of our family's idiosyncratic definitions of what it means to love, to be committed, to feel safe, to be part of a family, and other emotionally charged themes. Yeah, I just think right there that there's just so much wisdom in these paragraphs here.
Yeah, you know, the sentence right after that is there is a large body of literature documenting the links between childhood early experiences in relationship and their later capacity in performing adult relational tasks. Finding a suitable partner, maybe you read that already.
No, I didn't. Keep going. This is great.
Finding a suitable partner, sustaining a marriage, raising offspring to become healthy adults, among other tasks. That is killer.
It is so great. And this is research from 2010, so it's not quite
Not
as
the-
current,
Right.
but it's very valid. And I'm guessing that if we looked at that research article and what more current research is
There,
referencing that
there,
article, we
there
would
is.
have something current.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, we're always looking for current research just to, basically validate what we've known for decades, decades and decades.
And so he ends that paragraph by just saying something we've all heard so many times. Children do indeed learn what they live.
Ooh, boy, I got goosebumps. Okay, that's a meme right there.
Yep.
hmm Yeah, so then on page 79, the person we are right now, this is basically the second paragraph, second full paragraph. The person we are right now is a product of the many countless interactions we have had with all of the people who are close enough to us to make an impression on the surface of our psyche.
I don't see that.
It starts with the person we are right now on page 79, right in the middle.
Go in the middle. Okay.
hmm
I see that. Okay. Because I
hmm
thought you had the second paragraph. So I was looking at that.
Yeah, and our brain is like a ball of soft clay that always maintains some degree of softness, such that it retains, at least potentially, every fingerprint of every hand that touched it. This feature is called neuroplasticity. Just as the psyche is slowly shaped and reshaped every time an individual interacts with the world, so too are partners in the conjoined space of the shared reality that exists in the space between, constantly chained in the oscillation between focus and flow, which is the source of the potential for continuous change. And then as we're wrapping up this chapter, I just wanted to highlight at the bottom of that page, we can only give what we have already received. This is a very, very crucial point in terms of the social journey and the lost parts. And oftentimes, when we're working with like a behavior change request, we're asking people to stretch in to give something that they most likely did not receive. So, if they didn't receive empathy, it's going to be really hard to give empathy. And so, we have to learn that as a couple together, right?
In order to integrate.
Right. And to heal and to grow back into our original blueprint of our full life
So,
force energy. So as we wrap up this chapter, let's just do a round of what's your big takeaway from today. Really appreciate everyone's voice in the circle. Yeah, Linda.
Oh, I guess my takeaway is really kind of that last sentence on page 79. It's a scripture that you hear a lot in churches. It says it's better to give than to receive. So they always mention this scripture when it's offering time because they want you to give your money. But when hearing Harville talk about this, uh, it landed differently for me because I'm like, it's better to give than to receive because when you're able to give these things, you create the narrow pathways that you need in order to receive them.
Mm.
yes. Yes. Oh, that's beautiful, Linda. I
Yeah.
love that.
So,
That's great. Hmm. Hmm.
Taking
Well,
me to church, Linda. Thank you again.
we're
Yeah.
home.
Valerie, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say here are some thoughts that have been coming together for me as we've been working on this. The the first thing is from on the clinical level that I've noticed that at the beginning, some couples, or at least one person in the couple, will say, "My childhood was wonderful. Everything was fine. My parents supported me." All this stuff comes out like in the appreciation dialogue. How is my experience with you different or similar to what I experienced? So that's somebody in the state where the memories are not conscious yet. They think their partner is the source of their problems. And then later, the experience is I remember more and more clearly that which was perpetrated on me or that which I lacked, whether it be the neglect or the intrusion type of experience. And the memories become clearer and clearer of that. See, I'm talking here about the time thing getting worked out, the issue of the past and the present. And then further along for couples that I'm seeing where maybe it's 2 years down the road, then that person will begin to have very specific positive memories of a parent who had been depicted as really useless for me. Like, well, my dad really did come to my games and he did cheer for me, or just these narrow, even if they seem narrow, memories of real gifts that the person received from their parent. And so I had seen that as kind of a natural progression when the couple is moving forward. But now what I'm seeing, even in addition to that, is I can remember my dad encouraging me because now I feel like you, my partner, are encouraging me. So it kind of goes in a, what do they call it? Amoeba strip, it keeps coming back on itself. And that's what's coming to me out of our work today. So thank you very much, everybody.
Oh,
Wow.
so beautifully said, Valerie.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm just going to mirror this piece because you were saying that as I experience my partner in this more positive light, this allows me to remember positive memories from my history the same way that as we do the work, more of the painful memories start to become accessible to me. And these are all examples of how we're integrating. Am I with you? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you.
Integration, my takeaway.
That's your takeaway, integration. Yes. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for those questions. I really love these questions. They really just enrich our whole journey and exploration together.
I appreciate you doing this group because I read this so long ago, and to me, this is an experience of the brain. You are all of us in relationship are reading this book together, or highlighting things about it. To me, it's I've been doing collaborative facilitation for 40 years, and clearly this is way I love this. So thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, you're highlighting that this is our shared brain.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like by having these conversations, the wisdom, the knowledge starts to become more embodied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, there were so many things, but the one thing that's coming to me now as a standout is this idea of the various parts of the vagal system and the analogy and how that sort of validates the science around minimizing and maximizing concept in Imago, the exchange of energy. I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, linking the concept of minimizing and maximizing actually to the brain processes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, the brain and the body,
The
right?
brain body, it's all connected. It's
Right.
all connected. Yeah.
Leslie, what you're saying to me highlights what I'm trying to say about us being a brain. What I love about this is each one of us is making different connections.
Yeah.
And by making those different connections and sharing them with each other, we're expanding the neural network in our own brains and the connections within our own brains. So
And
thank you for
bodies.
And bodies and linking it
that.
to our work and our
Yeah,
personal experiences. So
I love it.
cool.
integration.
Yeah.
Integration.
Well,
Therefore, we are greater than the sum of our parts.
Mm, yeah.
Absolutely.
mhm.
For me, first of all, the more I discover about Imago, the more I discover there's so much to learn. So it's like a never-ending story. And I have took so many notes today. One thing that and I haven't read the book, and I've watched the videos, but I'm committing to read the book moving forward. But that sentence around safety, which is created in relationship and only in relationship, really struck a chord because, first of all, I'm asking myself, like, her role here is not sharing in relationship with what, right? So it's like it brings about, some questioning here. And it's also thinking about, so when there's no relationship, where is safety?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just questioning myself in terms of, okay, so if it's only in relationship, where does safety live, or how is it present or not? So I'm just debating around that, and yeah,
Hmm.
more to reflect on.
Yeah, but that's just a beautiful and important question. What you're bringing up is if safety is only found in relationship, right? And then how do we define relationship, right? We
Mhm.
assume here that it's with another human being. But if it's only there, then when you don't have like a pair bond, then where can you have it, right? And I think these are really significant questions. Like, uh, where else do we have relationships? And yeah, I love that. I love the question. In a way, I don't want to answer the question because it's just such a sacred question.
Mhm.
Um, that I want to keep holding that question and the value of that question. Yeah, Leslie, you want to add?
Well, yeah, I don't want to like say this is like the answer or the only answer, but one way that I look at it is I think about, you know, there I have a relationship with myself. I have a relationship with various others in different communities I'm in. I have my romantic relationship, and I have a relationship with a power greater than myself. If And I'm not talking about religion so much, but whatever that is for you, whether it's the group or the
Yeah,
whatever that is.
that's right.
There's
So
a
there's
conversation that I'm having
all
with
of it.
three of those relationships.
Oh, I love that, Leslie. I love that you're expanding it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the first thought was that holistic relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even emotionally, spiritually, physically,
Mm-hmm.
right? With
Exactly. With
people, with
yourself.
nature, with the
Yes.
unknown, right?
Yes, yes. And I just will
Many
add,
facets.
I want to get to Paul before we end and your what you're taking away, but I'll just add that that when we are trying to have a long-term committed relationship with another human being, it brings up parts of ourselves that just don't get dug up the same way. And so, it's kind of a both and, which is why I want to hold that hold the question. Yeah. Paul, do you want to share what was your
Yeah,
takeaway?
well, before I get to that, I would just want to add on a little bit of that. And,
Good.
uh, you know, I always think I'm born into a relationship and there was safety there, although I can't remember, but until there was a rupture. And I
Yeah.
think for me that knowing that I was born into a relationship and I was co-regulated, then that's part of my environment. That's part of what I want in my, that's why I would seek out relationship in the first place.
Mm,
Because I'm looking for safety. I'm looking to be co-regulated
mm. You're
and to
looking to
regulate.
be co-regulated because you were born in a relationship.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something else you
And
want to add before
yeah,
we
yeah.
wrap
The
up?
my little takeaway was I love that uh the woman that left, I think, said it. I will share without shame, blame, or criticism. And I didn't get the second part of that, what the response was to that. But
Linda's got it, I think. Do you have it? No, it was like, I will listen with an open heart, putting aside my world.
I love it.
She
Me
said.
I love
too. Me too. I love the shared learning we're doing here.
it.
So
See, what I was going
go
to say
ahead,
is this
Leslie.
goes
I'm
back
I'm
to
sorry,
our.
Valerie, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was thinking is this takes us back to where we started was with a quantum theory, is that there is no such thing as a thing or a person, that all of us are connected with everything else. And so right now we're connected. And when we leave here, we won't be the same as we were when we entered. And
Oh,
that's really his point about the neuroplasticity, and that, that it just goes on all the time, which is just amazing to me, because I came up under the thing that we also studied, that whatever happens to you early in life is formative, but then but it's not changeable. So where this chapter ends is, how do we change this then? What is it that we have to offer as Imago practitioners to give people hope, that things can grow within you and between you and the world.
I just love everything you just said. Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, so we are, there isn't a thing. There's not even another person. It's all connected, and we can bring people hope because we're changeable. Am I with you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I want to highlight next time we're going to study chapter 4. And I love this chapter so much. They call it the human agenda, and they're integrating the psychological journey and the social journey and can kind of combining them into what is our agenda as a human being. And I just think it's going to be a really lively conversation. So I'd like your input. Would you like to do it on December 20th or 27th? Really don't want to miss December. I know it's busy, but I don't want to miss doing it. So do you have a preference, 20th or 27th? 20, I see 20.
I don't care.
Okay,
And by
well,
the way, just so you know, I haven't read the Doing Imago book because I've been busy reading this
yes, that
one
makes sense.
and the workbook.
Oh, wow, I love it.
Just so you
You
know.
are right. The way you said it, it's like, yes, Imago does not end. It just keeps unfolding in a beautiful fractal of knowledge, and it keeps folding back into itself and repeating
Mhm.
there is sort of a canon that we're working with, but yet it's still unfolding. So,
Yeah. And I was with Helen and Harville
oh,
2 weeks ago, so
that's
Oh,
great.
nice.
Okay,
for
so
their
I
love.
hope to see you all on the 20th. I will post this recording. I'll post the next date on the 20th. I love it. And
Yeah, we were there together, Valerie and I.
I love it. And yeah, I'll see you on December 20th.
Sounds
Thanks
Have
so
great.
much,
a
everyone.
great
Thank you,
Turkey
Michelle.
Day if you celebrate it.
You too. I'm
Thank
thankful
you.
for all of you all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Valerie.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Michelle, for
everyone.
Everybody.
hosting
Nice
this.
meeting
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.